My goal today is to create a scorecard in Scoreboard. I've already logged in and have landed at my homepage. Before I build a scorecard, I'll take a look at a pre-developed one for Mobile World. On the primary navigation pane on the left, I'll select Scorecards. Using the drop-down arrow at the top, I can review a pre-built organizational structure which contains the company level and a number of departments beneath it. A key thing to note is that Scoreboard only allows one item at the root level, in this case, my organization, but it allows for an extensive structure beneath that. If I expand Mobile World, I'll see down towards the bottom is a sales structure that goes down 5 levels deep. If I want to select a particular level, like financial, I could click on it and then choose select. However, I'm going to work with the company level by clicking back on it and clicking select. I now see the Mobile World scorecard, which has already been developed using the classic scorecard design, containing the financial, customer, internal processes, and organizational capacity areas. Each of those areas are fed scores from underlying objectives, which are fed scores from underlying KPIs. My goal now is to illustrate the development of a new scorecard and organizational hierarchy from scratch. To do so, I'll click the drop-down at the top. Ensure Mobile World is selected, and then select Edit. My next step is to select New Organization. I'll type in a desired name like training and select Add Organization. Once I do that, the new item will exist at the bottom of the listing of organizations. Note that the new organization looks different than the organizations above it. It contains an empty circle versus a filled-in circle because there are no scorecards yet tied to it. I'll click Done to remove myself from edit mode. And then click Select to the right of Training to select that organization. The first thing that gets presented to me is the opportunity to create scorecard. I'll select that button and provide a name of training. I could provide a description and a tag, but I'll leave those blank and just select Create. Now that a scorecard exists, it will now assume that I will build up the scorecard in the traditional way of first defining areas. I will do just that by typing a name of financial. On the right, I could change the type to something else, like an objective or a KPI. However, in this case, I'm perfectly happy with leaving that as an area, so I'll just click away and select Create in the bottom right. When I choose Create, Scoreboard assumes I will be adding another area. In this case, I will. So I'll type Customer and select Create. Once I'm done creating areas, I can click one of the areas already created, like Customers, and the auto-generated item will automatically disappear. Once I'm ready to create objectives, I'll select the appropriate area that is tied to them, in this case financial. I'll then select New Scorecard Item at the top. Notice that instead of building items at the same level like with the areas previously, I now have a tiered structure going with the objective residing beneath the area. that looking correct, I'll type the name of increased revenue. Confirm that the type of object is objective, and then I'll select Create. I could load additional financial objectives, but for the sake of time, I'll make that the last one, and I'll move on to the creation of KPIs. I'll select the new objective, Increase Revenue, and then once again select New Scorecard Item. The hierarchy once again looks correct, cascading from an area to objective to KPI. So I'll type product revenue for the name and confirm that the type is KPI. Moving down to the Kpi Details section for scoring type, Scoreboard provides a number of different options. Unscored, a simple yes/no, and so on. The most commonly deployed option is the default of goal and red flag, which provides 3 colors, red, yellow, green, and a 0 to 10 normalized scoring range. In this case, I'm happy with the default, so I'll just click away from scoring type. Moving to the right, I can change the frequency of which any KPI is updated to monthly, quarterly, yearly, and so on. Once again, I'm happy with the default of monthly, so I'll just click away from calendar. To the right of that is data type with options of number, percentage, and currency. Given that this is a revenue metric, I'll select currency. Moving down, the aggregation type allows me to set how the data should be aggregated if I move to a different periodicity, like quarterly or yearly. Since these are revenue numbers, I just want them to be summed up, so I'll leave the default of sum and click away from aggregation type. To the right of that is the decimal precision, which can contain a display of 0 to 4 decimal places. I'm happy with the default, so again I'll click away from decimal precision. Next to that is the currency symbol, and since our company is based in the United States, I'll switch to dollar. Moving down to the series section, the series is going to reflect the scoring type that I selected earlier, in which I accepted the default of goal and red flag. If I go back to scoring type and switch it to maybe 3 color, I'll notice that the series section automatically changes to include entries for best and worst. I'll set it back to goal red flag. Move back to the series section and set the thresholds for red flag and goal. The red flag value for our product revenue is going to be $440,000. Meaning if I dip below that value, I'll get a normalized score between 0 and 3.33 and be in the red. The goal will be $470,000. Meaning that if I go above that value, I'll get a normalized score between 6.67 and 10 and be in the green. Anything between 440 and 470 will be between 3.34 and 6.66 and be in the yellow. Moving further down, I have the opportunity to set the Kpi Owner and Updater, and I'll choose myself for both options. After setting all the properties for product revenue, I'll give things a quick review and then select Create in the bottom right. Once again, Scoreboard assumes I want to create another item. And in fact I do, as I want to create training revenue. An important thing to note this time around is that the product now defaults to all the settings that I just used for product revenue. I had switched the data type to currency and the currency to dollars, and those settings have now come through as the new default. The only thing I need to do is set the red flag maybe to 200,000 and the goal to 220. I'll then scroll down and set myself once again as the owner and updater. Once I'm done with that, I'll click Create. I'm going to quickly create one more KPI named Book Revenue. I'll set the red flag to 50,000 and the goal to 70,000. I'll set myself as the owner and updater again. And click Create. At this point, we have defined 3 KPIs under the increased revenue objective. One item I do want to point out is the concept of weighting. After a KPI has been defined, if I click on it, and I'll click on Product Revenue, I'll see a weight of 33.33%. And that's been automatically applied. What Scoreboard will do is evenly divide the number of KPIs when assigning the weight. In this case, 100 divided by 3 KPIs is 33.33. I do have the ability to override that by clicking Weight and perhaps assigning the product revenue 2 times the importance of the others. At that point I would select Save, but for now I actually want to leave things as they were, so I'll select Cancel. This weighting will impact the normalized scoring in the roll-up to the next level. So if product revenue was red, and I just made that maybe to 4 times more important than the other 2 KPIs, odds are the increased revenue objective will also be in red, even if the other 2 are in green. Another item I'd like to discuss is the concept of calculated KPIs. To do so, I'll create one more KPI beneath increased revenue. I'll select that, and then select New Scorecard item at the top. And I'll introduce a 4th KPI called Total Revenue. Unlike the others, this KPI will not impact the performance score of the increased revenue objective. I'm adding it solely for tracking purposes. Under scoring type, for the first time, I'll deviate from the default of goal and red flag and change it to unscored. Everything else under the Kpi Details section will be left exactly the same as the other KPIs. Under the Series section, I'll change the actual value from manual to calculated. When I do that, a new option appears where I can select Set Equation and proceed to define a calculation that sums up the other 3 KPIs. Now, if I was an absolute genius, I could directly type the equation in the actual value box with the correct IDs for each KPI. But since I'm not, I'll click on Select a KPI, and navigate to the increased revenue objective. I'll then select Product Revenue and then select Done. Once I'm done with that, I'll click Add to introduce it to the actual value box at the top. I'll then add in a plus symbol. And since at that point now I'll go in and I'll add in additional KPIs. I'll click on Select a KPI again, I'll click on training revenue and click Done. Once again, I'll click Add. One more time, I'll click Plus, select a KPI, and this time select Book Revenue, and click Add. And before I leave this, I'll just note that there are measure IDs that are coming across that correlate to the KPIs that I selected at the bottom. That looks okay. I'll select Done. And lastly, at the bottom right, I'll select Create. If I click on Total Revenue, since it's an unscored KPI, I'll see the weight has been correctly applied as 0. If I click on the 0, I'll see the original 3 KPIs contain the original weights of 33.33. They'll be the only KPIs that impact the score of the increased revenue objective. Having no changes to make, I'll select Cancel. At this point, I could add all of my KPIs and objectives across all the areas, but for the sake of time, I'll assume that I've built up a complete structure and select Done at the bottom. The last thing I'd like to do is load a few actual values for my KPIs so I can see some colorized scoring. If I click on Product Revenue, I'll see the red and gold values defined when I added the KPI, 440,000 and 470. However, I have no actual values loaded as yet and hence have no normalized score. By default, I'll be looking at the prior month, which in this case is May 2019. To enter values for May, I'll click on the Update button in the middle. Maybe enter an actual value of 480,000 and select Save. When I do that, I'll notice a change in the performance section in the top left. My alert is now populated with an actual value, a normalized score of 7.78 was generated, and the green section has been filled in. Since I entered an actual value that is above my goal, I instinctively know that I'll be in the green, and my normalized score will be something between 6.67 and 10. If I toggle to any other month but May, I'll see that just the threshold values are there with no score, since no other actuals have been loaded as yet. If I have a lot of values to update, there is an easier method to load them on the home page. So up in the top left, I'll select Home. Under your responsibilities, I'll then select Kpi Updates at the top of that section. The default is to show all KPIs for all my organizations. If I'm overwhelmed by that list and want to narrow that down to just the financial KPIs I just defined, I'll go to the top and select the training organization that I just created. I see that of the 3 KPIs, I've only updated product revenue for May 2019. If I wanted to open this up to more time periods in the top right, I could click on the drop down and switch from monthly maybe to quarterly and select Show Results. This would now allow me to enter April, May, and June data for each of my 3 KPIs. However, to save some time and effort, I'm going to switch this back to monthly. And then select May and click Show Results. I'll enter 210,000 for my training revenue. And for book revenue, I'll enter 50,000. And then in the bottom right, I'll select Update KPIs. Scoreboard will then save the values for anything that had not been entered previously and briefly display a message accordingly. If I'm done entering values, I can go back to Scorecards. If I expand the financial area and the increased revenue objective, I'll see that for May, my product revenue is in green, training revenue is in yellow, and my book revenue is in the red. If I click on the unscored total revenue, I'll see it looks completely different. There is no colored score, only a total revenue value of $740,000, which is the correct sum of the three KPIs, 480 plus 210 plus 50. If I click on Increase Revenue, I'll see a normalized score of 5.37, which is the normalized score of each of the weighted KPIs below it, divided by 3. If I click on the financial area, I'll see the same normalized score of 5.37 since there is just the one objective that feeds it. If I click on the training scorecard, once again, I'll see the same normalized score of 5.37 since I have not yet loaded any values for the customer area.